Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. Dr. Andy Fata-Chan, it's nice to actually finally have you on the show. We got to hang out a few weeks ago at the MBSC Spring Seminar in Boston. You were the keynote presenter at Mike Boyle's, so that was pretty cool. And for those of my audience who are not overly familiar with you, you're a doctor of physical therapy and founder of Moment Education, co-founder of Moment PTP, co-founder of Go Getters Coaching. You've been doing a lot of mentorship in the physical therapy and coaching spaces, so you're kind of everywhere lately. It's great to have you on.
Appreciate you. Yeah, it's been an absolute journey and grateful for all the opportunities and likewise being on the podcast. I know we followed each other for a while, so it was also great to meet in person. I was like, holy cow, this guy is massive.
Well, I got to also give a shout to my friend and former mentee, Ren Collier. And Ren was raving about you as well, and he'd pushed you a little further on my radar quite a while ago. And then, of course, I had the opportunity to actually get to see you at MBSC. So you can
Oh, Ren's the
give Ren
man.
that.
One of the happiest people I think I've ever met.
Wonderful human, yes. Okay, I'm gonna go right for the big one. There's a quote that you had on your media recently. It's this simple. Quote, I need to dream bigger. What does this mean in your personal context, and how do you think this applies to everybody, their own lives?
Oh man, diving right in, I love it. I think it's something that's like really on the forefront currently myself. We always think about like what could go wrong, and we never think about the flip side of like what could go right. And I think we all struggle with this where it's like when things are bad, we want them to improve. When things are good, we're terrified of things going bad again. So where does that leave us? It kind of leaves us to the point where like we're never ever like present. And I think nowadays I'm just thinking about, okay, things are going great for me right now. Why do I have this inkling that like things are going to go bad? Or like why do I care so much about that happening? It's one of the constants in life. Good things will happen, bad things will happen. So why do I attach so much emotion to it and why do I take things so personally when things go bad? So for me now, when I think about where I'm at, I'm like, I couldn't have even dreamed about this. I wrote goals down before in the past, but I smashed all those goals and I can't even fathom being here anymore. I'm super grateful for the opportunities that I've had. So now it's just like, okay, why am I so afraid to dream big when I've gotten everything I've ever always wanted?
Do you think it's easier for most people to play small? Because you yourself said that people are afraid of it's the classic waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, all right, things are eerily good right now. I'm waiting for this all to fall apart. Do you think some people almost sabotage it to make it a reality before, as needing certainty as opposed to facing the uncertain potential upside?
100%. There's something that I've been thinking about recently. I think I heard it first from Bob Proctor. And he says it's be, do, have. That's how you really elicit change. You have to be the person you have, do the thing that that type of person would do, and then you have the type of things that that person will have. But most people do the opposite. They wait till they have something before they do the thing and before they become that version of themselves. Whereas like now I've just kind of flipped the script. I want to be this person. What kind of standards does that person have? What kind of habits does that person have? I'm going to start doing those things now. And the minute that I start doing those things, I'm going to have the things in my life that that type of person would have. So I think I've just kind of flipped the switch where it's like I try to focus as much as I can internally on becoming this version of myself that I want to become. And then I start to think about the actions that person takes. And then I know I'll slowly have those things. Whereas other people, they're waiting for something like external to happen before they make a declaration of who they are.
There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. I mean, I tend to think in terms of biasing towards action. That's one of my things. And then I guess it's the James Clear, you cast votes for the identity of the person you want to be. And these things sound like they align.
No, for sure. I think when you change your identity and like when you tell people that you're changing your identity, all of a sudden everyone kind of starts to hold you accountable, right? It's like, oh, or even yourself, like I think human beings in general, they want to be consistent. So if I say that I'm of this type of character or I'm this kind of identity, I'm gonna start to want to be consistent. I don't want to be a hypocrite and do the complete opposite of those things. This can be across any broad spectrum of stuff. Myself personally, one of the things that I struggle with was like I'm a 0 to 100 guy, meaning I'm typically very intense. Uh, and this is like, oh yeah, I typically will have like one drink or I'll have a lot of drinks. And it's not like I'm like a very irresponsible drinker, right? I'm just someone that loves to have fun. But over time, that kind of narrative kind of eats at you because you start to tell yourself this story and then you start to believe that story. It's like, oh, I'm just an intense kind of person. That's just how I am. And after a really bad hangover, I'm like 32 years old. I'm like, I can't do this stuff anymore. Like, I can't recover as well. I need to be more productive. I need to show up, all right, for the people in my life, my team. And I just told myself, I'm not that intense of a person anymore. I don't need to like be the type of person that goes all out. I can enjoy 2 to 3 drinks and that'd be a great night. And ever since I just made that declaration, my actions have followed suit.
How much of that was a narrative to justify problematic behavior that you weren't taking responsibility for?
I wasn't really like getting into too much trouble by any means. Just again, I'm not the type of person that like will drink a ton, start fights and things like that. I'm the type of person that like have a decent amount of drinks, put my arm around your shoulder, like, hey, you remember that time? Blah blah blah. Dude, I miss you so much. So more of that kind of person. But I think it was just like it's like Jekyll and Hyde, you know? Like I used to like take a shot of tequila and I'm like, okay, wow, I'm ready to go for the rest of the night. And it's like it's too much, right? It's like you should just have a cocktail, have a beer, and that's it. Like just enjoy your time. Like that's if that's the stage that you're in, because like right now, I want to feel as good as I can as long as I can, right? And while having drinks and having the social things are great, they do like give me brain fog and stuff the day after. And sometimes like my hangovers have become existential, which is like super inconvenient.
I mean, I'm a former bar owner. I was just seeing
What?
that
I
the
didn't know
band
that.
21 to 22 years ago, back in my past life in Newfoundland, East Coast of Canada. And I was reminded of this. It feels like someone else's life. But the band Collective Soul are coming to Edmonton, and I missed them last time because I was traveling, but I thought I should go see them. But the last time I saw Collective Soul, I was drinking with them in the upstairs of my bar after their concert in Newfoundland, and this would have again been probably about 21-ish years ago. So just a reminder of those days. And but the last, well, certainly year or so, I've drank minimally. And I drank recreationally for most of my adult life. And like you, I realized just to maintain the level of work, productivity, focus, energy, it doesn't fit very well anymore. I don't enjoy it. I certainly don't crave it or need it. So something changed for me.
Yeah, I think once you hit like the week threshold, it kind of becomes pretty easy. The first week when you're like, hey, I'm gonna do dry January, it's pretty freaking tough. But nowadays it's like once you hit that week threshold, it kind of could easily become a new norm for someone that's like, more recreational. But personally, I still do enjoy the taste of like an ice cold beer in the summer or like a nice glass of red wine for dinner.
Mm.
Now, am I gonna like start drinking like vodka? Like, no, those things are disgusting, right? Th Those are only just like kind of a product of being within a group of people. Some people love vodka, some people love tequila, could not do it. Do I love a scotch every now and then? Neat. Absolutely, right?
Oh, yes.
But it's one of those things like I don't ever crave scotch like that. It's like, oh, if all the buddies are together, yeah, let's drink a scotch.
Oh, yeah. Good scotch. Wonderful. I want to circle back a little bit because a lot of what you said about change was an internal thing, but you mentioned other people. And I wonder to what degree do, when we work on changing, then we're, other people can have negative reactions to it because there's something existential here, seeing as you use the word. Think about this, everybody listening. Nobody actually knows everything about you. They don't know you, all your thoughts. They only know what they've been exposed to. And there's could be people that know you very well, been around you a lot. Most people less so. So they form ideas of who you are in their mind that's not actually reflective of you and your true thoughts. But very often, you also take on the identity that they need you to have for them. Now, a lot of the time for our friends, family members, or whatever, that can be very positive. But for antagonists in our life, we can fulfill a role of being a villain, and no matter how much we change, they'll still need us to be that. And we can change, we can advance past things, and people will still hold on to their old identity that they assign to us. But how much of us changing can actually be threatening to the people in our lives, when you hear things like, "Oh, you're not the same person anymore." Have you encountered this, both your internal narrative or any pressure from anybody else in your world to stay the same?
There's a great quote. It says, being a good person to the average person is that you are doing what they want you to.
Hmm.
And when I heard that quote, I was like, holy cow, right? Like everyone, no one likes to change. I think every single year progressively gets harder to change. So when you play a role in someone's life and you start to change, they're thinking like, well, what the hell's your problem? You're doing exactly what I need you to do, right? To keep things exactly where it's at. And I don't think that everyone gets triggered per se. I think there's definitely certain instances where like people might feel a little bit more triggered than before. But I try to always lean into the fact that when I personally get triggered by somebody else, it's something within myself that I haven't forgiven myself for. And this person is bringing that subconscious to the surface. When other people get triggered, they've really got to be very introspective to like think like, oh, why is that bothering me so much? There's something called like the tall poppy syndrome, and I believe it's like an Irish thing. And essentially, you don't want to be a tall poppy, right? You don't want to stand out. So when someone really starts to stand out, everyone kind of brings that person down so that we can all be in a level playing field. And I think about that a lot because if, let's say, like for me, for instance, I was by far the dumbest person in my friend group. I was cutting school, hanging out at karaoke bars, pool halls, staying out till way too late, gambling, all that good stuff. And now I'm like very successful. And I think there is sometimes different ways to look at it. Some people might be super inspired, some people might not think anything, and then other people might be like, we came from very similar upbringings, and your success is shining light on the fact that I haven't succeeded as much as you. So I don't think that we can control how other people react. We can only just forgive people for, where they're coming from, because it's like
Hmm.
we can't take that responsibility and burden on
Hmm.
ourselves.
This is interesting. I've encountered a bunch of different things. And my career, certainly, my career has done rather well. So, and people see a large number in front of social media. They see public speaking things. They assign their own idea of status to that. But through their lens, I'm consistently surprised with the sheer positivity and support and the people who absolutely love this stuff. I get a lot of that. I have in pockets experienced, catching secondhand, people talking, what have you, negativity. A few of those individuals have come back around later on, apologized for their attitudes, and explicitly said that was them. And of course, I guess their own insecurities, right? But I also strongly suspect there are those people that you've grown away from. Now, there are people I distinctly had to actively or at least passively remove from my life, and their absence makes my life better. It's probably a catalyst in having grown and been able to have the capacity to do things I've done. But funny enough, there are also people I haven't talked to in a long time who I still think highly of. It's just those people that you just don't talk to anymore. You still have them on your social media and you genuinely thinking positive of them. So I'm kind of hoping those people are also positive and not thinking, oh, he's too good. He's too big now to talk to us. But when I run into people randomly, overwhelmingly, it's good. I don't know if you've had a similar experience.
Totally. A good friend of mine, we were actually in San Diego. We were talking, and he was like, you just can't force relationships, right? Certain relationships don't grow any further, and that's just it stays where it's at that level and that depth. And if you try to force it, well, it's just very abnormal. You just have to appreciate like the level of depth that that relationship will go to. And it could be from a childhood friend, a friend from high school, etc. There's going to be a point where it stops evolving, and it's okay. You can love it for where what it is, what it's done for you. And I kind of think about like, you ever watch Good Will Hunting?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so like all of Will's friends, right? Like they're not going to be talking philosophy or the things that Will knows, but they're his friends from back home that care deeply about him. If they get in a bar fight, they're going to be the first one to throw a fist at somebody. So there's certain friendships and relationships that you have that serve a purpose in your life and in your growth, and it doesn't go beyond that. And you have to kind of come to terms with those things. Now, on the flip side, like for me personally, it's like it's impossible to keep up with everybody. So there are certain people I tell, especially like I have a lot of people, industry friends, where they're like, "Hey, just catching up, blah blah blah," or like, "Hey, want to hop on another meeting?" I'm like, "Oh, sure." Like, what can I do for you? He's like, "Oh, nothing. I just wanted to catch up." I'm like, "Listen, man, I'm super busy, but I'm not the type of person that you need to catch up with. I'm gonna be thinking about you, and if there's anything that I
Mhm.
can really tangibly help you with, please let me know, because I would love to do that versus just like a general catch up." Because what I've found that people would think that they need to like schedule some sort of phone call with me every 3 to 6 months. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm not that type of person. I met you once. You're an amazing person. I think you're doing super, super cool stuff. If you have a specific problem that I can help you solve, definitely. If you're coming to town, I want to hang out with you. But you don't need to like you don't have to schmooze me. I've already got an amazing impression on you, and I'm on your side.
Oh, I love this. It's oftentimes it's about high leverage use of our time as well, right? It's boundaries and gatekeeping our time. Um, just literally to your point, my friend Eric Wong Kai-Pun, a former podcast guest speaker at my event, he's the director of personal training for all of Good Life Canada. Awesome human. We're great friends. And he just texted me asking if I was free at a certain date coming up, and he's going to be in town. And so yeah, so we set some time. We're going to grab a bite to eat, right? Like, and that's always a very high leverage thing, but he's also someone I enjoy and we always talk shop and we're good friends. This also got me thinking about something else. And I've observed this a few times. If we think about the more well-known figures in adjacent to our world, I think Alex Hormozy is probably a great example of this. I think there are people who love his media. There are definitely people I know who aren't fans of him. Setting that all aside, but I think it's relevant. Alex was once a gym owner, and then he became a gym mentor. And then some stuff grew. He's ambitious. He's definitely had a lot of good breaks, but relentless work ethic. And then he published his first book. It goes crazy. Now he's got these three books. He's doing his things at acquisition.com. He was very deliberate and intentional about building his media. And he grew out of the fitness industry. He no longer was the identity of the gym owner, gym mentor. He is now a global, well-known public figure in business entrepreneurial space. And I'm guessing there's probably a lot of people who still need him to be that identity within the fitness industry, the smaller person. And the fact that he's grown, I'm sure people are resentful or negative about the things that he's had to do, and will actually often characterize those things as let's say unethical or negative. Whether or not they were, I'm not in a position to judge that. But I think sometimes there's that negative spin for someone who grew beyond the space that we're all in. And I wonder, is that tall puppy syndrome, that resentment for someone else kind of reaching escape velocity and doing something greater? Or I don't know. And there's a few other individuals I consider friends who I see growing beyond our fitness industry. And I see them getting negativity from the people who are still trapped in the mindset that we're all somehow supposed to still be the fitness professional. Does that make sense?
No, for sure. I forget the exact story, but what war it was. I believe it's the Vietnam War. Somebody was in the jungle for years and years because he thought that the war was still going on.
It was at post World War II. It was a Japanese. He became a legend, and he was on, I think, an Indonesian island. I may have the island wrong, but either way, this guy was literally going around and killing villagers for 30 years, and they were trying to get him out. They would drop leaflets. He didn't believe. He thought everything was propaganda, even from his own side. And he eventually got reintegrated. Eventually, some guy went to find him. This was in a book recently. I'm trying to remember what it was. Maybe it was David Epstein's Inside the Box, the new one on constraints. I suspect it might have been, but maybe I'm just mixing his shit up. But he got reintegrated into Japanese society. He didn't like what he saw because if it had changed since like pre-World War II Japanese society, and he was miserable. But yeah, this crazy story with that.
Yeah, so the guy's in, pretending that he's literally fighting a war that isn't going on anymore.
Mm.
And that's what I think about sometimes. Like, it's probably definitely more prevalent in like strength coaches, right? It's like, oh, we're in the trenches. I ain't got time to post on social media. I'm too busy in the trenches. And then you complain about maybe pay or lack of opportunities and things like that. And you're shooting yourself in the foot. Because I don't think when all options are on the table, you don't have to pick between one or another thing. Now, when someone, enters escape velocity and does something else completely different, and you're like, oh, this person's a sellout. I think misery loves company, right? People want to know that if they're suffering, other people are suffering with them. It makes things a little bit easier. So when like someone like Alex, for instance, enters private equity and he's no longer part of gym, it's like you're like, oh, you're not that kind of guy anymore because you're not in the trenches with us anymore. But there's no war that's really going on. You're just fabricating this war. And there's a lot of people that sometimes will make training sound like you're going to war. I'm like, training is training. Going to war is a completely different battle. Like, you're waking up at 6 a.m. to go to the gym to make yourself a better person. Someone else is going to war to defend the country. Don't make that comparison.
Another quote that aligns with this whole conversation. The average person is miserable and they'll try to fix your problems when you're happy chugging along. This is in the context of your demanding, busy, fulfilling career when someone else will see this and go, wow, that guy needs to find work-life balance.
Shout outs to Jonathan Goodman.
My
I,
friend.
I was super fortunate to work with his team to help build some of our online education. And I've read a lot of his books, but he had this great snippet, and I think it's the Unhinged Habits book where he talks about he's, just woken up, he's getting a coffee and he's chugging along and like writing on his book, and some guy goes, probably came back from a bender at night and just chuckled at him. It's like, huh, this guy needs a life. And I think about that a lot because when people look at what I'm doing day to day, they're like, holy crap, this guy needs to fucking chill. And I've searched for work-life balance in moments in time where I felt very passionate about my work, which I think is a huge mistake. And I do think that you need to rest, right? I'm not saying that like you're gonna grind, grind, grind forever, but I think everything is asymmetrical. Especially when you're an entrepreneur. You're gonna work extremely hard, then I need you to rest extremely hard. It's very rare that an entrepreneur gets to work a very neat hour, like weekly, hourly schedule. It's very erratic. There are times when momentum is happening, like we're in a phase right now where I truly feel like we're in a 6 month sprint. Like at a speaking gig or something every single weekend, almost for the first 3 months. Our marketing and advertising has been insane for our physical therapy practice. We're hiring, almost doubling our team, building another space. So yes, I think in late June, my wife and I are gonna be going to an all-inclusive resort, and I'm not gonna do anything for like 5 nights, right? I'm just gonna
Hmm.
zonk out on the beach, and we're just gonna hang out together. But, all of this is building towards like, yes, in the first stage of my life, the first 10, 15 years of my work career, I'll probably be working a ton. But in the later stages, I'll be doing a lot more thinking, writing, work-life balance, right? So balance comes from doing a lot of stuff up front, but ideally you're doing the stuff up front that you actually enjoy. Because people are going to look at me and tell me that I need to chill and relax, but I love what I do. I love, creating content, connecting with people, educating our team, supporting people on our team, the communities that I get to be a part of. Like those are all things that energize me. I used to finish a 14-hour day with barely a break, just seeing patients, and I would end the day with a mentorship call. And that mentorship call would give me more energy, which is pretty amazing.
Oh, got a few things here. Number one, I had Jonathan on a while ago talking about his book, Unhinged Habits. It's great. It kind of speaks to this because he too will buck the idea of work-life balance. He just has more. We talk about sprints. There'll be periods of rest and there'll be periods of sprint, which is the very nature of an author. It's funny you mentioned Jonathan because he's one of the people I was alluding to specifically who is reaching exit velocity and gradually working his way out of the fitness industry because he's more interested in his authorship. And, I'm confident that there will be pushback from people in the industry who need him to still be the person he was for so long in this industry. And meanwhile, Jonathan's on his own course, and I think he will outgrow the industry. He may still have footprints within it. You've probably read The Obvious Choice. Actually,
Great
and I'm
book.
proud of this. I am mentioned in The Obvious Choice. And then if you go back, his previous book, which is self-published, Getting Clients and Referrals, one of the Fit Pro series, I wrote 9 pages of that because John wanted me to contribute some stuff, and it turned out really well. So yeah, John's books are great. I highly recommend them. Uh, there's something else in this, and Hormozy is a good reference too, because I know there was some recent static where Alex, for quite some time, was, a great example of like the grind culture, and a lot of people would demonize this, and he would say a lot of really intense things about his pace of work. And then all of a sudden, there's all these people, and this is a pet peeve of mine because they use somebody famous's name. I suppose in context we're talking about someone famous, but we're not doing it in a clickbaity way. But they'll use his name on their social media to get more engagement, and they're complaining about he's had changes of philosophy and life attitude. That's kind of part of the evolution. So I think it's again people being upset because he's no longer who they need him to be, whether he's their idol and North Star or a villain in their story.
Yeah, this kind of alludes to like the talk that I had at Mike MBSC, Mike Boyle's spring seminar. I think, the first season of someone's professional career should be burnout. You should work extremely hard and you should burn out. And I think burnout is important because I think you need to test how much you can handle. You've got limitations on how hard you think you can actually work. And I think you need to expose those limitations. When you're in this kind of season, you're working extremely hard, and every single hour that you work leads to a progressive positive outcome. You stop this season when you're working more hours and you don't seem to be getting the same amount of outcome for those hours. It stops becoming linear. And I think that's really good because that first season really just shows you what you're capable of. But in season two, what we kind of talked about is like radical self-inquiry. You hit a threshold because there's certain beliefs that you're holding on to that don't allow you to grow. So it's like the whole
Mm.
Jim Collins, I believe, like what got you here won't get you there kind of thing. You got to do radical self-inquiry because at that point, you're probably leading other people. You're probably growing the business, and the business really becomes a reflection of who you are. So if you don't do that radical self-inquiry and really think about, you know, your upbringing, your mannerisms, your coping strategy, why you behave the way you behave, that becomes a fabric of your business, whether you like it or not. So when you start to become more conscious of all of these things, you can actually change the trajectory of everything and just be more aware of limiting beliefs and how you kind of self-sabotage constantly. And then season three is kind of like surrender, just like, hey, life is always going to happen, right? At the end of season two, like, that, like, so much about yourself, why you behave the way you behave, but you can't fix every single problem. Life always has its own plan, so you just have to kind of surrender. And I look at, what Alex has gone through, and people are like, hey, this Tony Robbins episode, he's not that, David Goggins in him and all that stuff. Like, people are allowed to change, right? And that goes back to like the first part of our conversation where every single day you could completely declare a different identity, right? One that might serve you more in the season of your life and just move forward. And some people won't accept it, but you're living your life. Like, you have to do what's best for you.
A quick break from this episode to shout out RP Strength and the RP Hypertrophy app. I have a big confession. I've never used a coach before. I've always auto-regulated my training for decades. But I've known Dr. Mike Israetel and Nick Shaw, the founders of RP, for years, and I'll get behind anything they create, including years of reading their books, consuming their media, attending their seminars, and having them as guests on the show. And I've been using the RP Hypertrophy app now for several months. And several things have happened. It forced me to make smaller and more gradual but better increases in weight volume across time, like putting 5-pound plates on each side of a leg press. Like, who does that? Never before. Only 45s. It cut out the jump volume. It made my workouts faster and more efficient. I show up with a plan. I didn't have to think about what to do. I feel more accountable having a log my progress. And I don't skip things because I don't feel like it. If hiring a one-on-one coach isn't for you, using the RP Hypertrophy app is the next best thing to manage your gains and to take the guesswork out of your program. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free, and if you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. And I've also got you a $50 US dollar discount, so go to rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP, or go to the link below in the show notes. That's rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP. You made me think of something. I had a recent conversation episode with Krista Scott Dixon, and one of the pieces we talked about was the alter ego effect, which I'm a big fan of. And I think it's a little bit more situational than what you're referring to, but you can take on different identities in the moment to tackle different parts of your life, show up in different ways.
Yeah, in the interview with Tony Robbins, he calls him like Tony's like, "Come on, what's this Alex name?" He goes, "It's Anabolic Alex," right? And it's a great interview. I'm not sure you could still probably find like a copy of it on YouTube because I think the original was taken down.
Right.
But I think you can take these alter egos. There's a great book called The Myth of Charisma, and
Mm.
Beyonce has an alter ego that she takes on before she steps on stage. That's way more charismatic. Um, I think anyone can do these things, right? When you have a repetitive thing that it kind of happens in your life, if you're about to run a marathon, you're no longer Andrew, you're like agile Andrew, right? Like you just flip a switch. And I think those things are great. Like it sounds corny and cliche, but there's a ton of people that are high performers that know how to flip a switch.
I know it's a really useful tool. Another quote that aligns with all this, I pull off your media: the world can't give you something that you haven't given yourself. What does that mean?
I think everything starts internally. We do so much of what we do is trying to find a feeling externally. So we try to have all this success so that we can feel validated or we can feel worthy. We buy that new Porsche or watch or car so that we can have respect. But if you're looking for the world to give you something that you haven't given yourself, it just never is there. It's fool's gold. You're going to be running on this hedonic treadmill constantly. And you notice that like the people that don't feel like they have this like post-it note on their forehead that says validate me. They've validated their own existence. They found everything that they wanted internally. So personally for me, it's like, what's my North Star? My North Star for everything that I do is just like I want to feel light and happy, right? Like I've spent so much of my life grinding, putting pressure on myself and shaming myself for a bunch of random things. Like I just want to be light and happy. Like, what's my perfect day? I just bought a longboard. My wife's like, why'd you buy a longboard? I was like, I don't know. There's something about ripping an iced coffee and riding a longboard around the neighborhood that just be so relaxing. So I did it. And I'm not looking to find things like externally. Like I want to be able to experience all these kind of positive emotions just internally. And sometimes we've haven't allowed ourselves to be happy, to be proud of ourselves because we downplay everything that we do. And you can think about this nowadays, like your friend that runs a marathon starts to do a 50 miler, then does a 100 miler, and they just keep chasing, doing hard things. It's like BPN, go one more, go one more. But at some point, you have to acknowledge that you're just someone that's capable of doing hard things, that you're just someone that's capable, right, of building what you've built. You just don't give yourself enough credit because you downplay everything. Like if someone tries to give you a compliment, you're like, oh no, that's pretty easy. Of course you have no confidence, but you keep downplaying everything that you've endured and everything that you've built. So at some point you have to acknowledge what you've done, what you've been able to accomplish, and give yourself a pat on the back.
I mean, the quote in what you just described to me is building agency, right? Trust in yourself, capacity, that effort equals outcome, which is dispensing with what is all too prevalent, the oversimplification and a bit of a triggering phrase, but the victim mindset that I think a lot of society lives in, where they believe that it's all beyond their control. And that's what I hear in all that.
I've probably taken it to the extreme now where, even with my relationship with my wife, I'm like, I'm not responsible for making you happy. And people might be like, what? That's crazy. But I'm like, I'm not, right? I'm here to support you, though. In whatever emotion that you're feeling, I'm here to sit with you as you process those emotions. but I know that I can't be the person that makes you happy. I can't be the person that makes you sad. I can't be the person that makes you mad. Because if we think about it like this, if let's say me and you are in an argument right now, and then you have a friend that calls you, and we're yelling at each other, and a friend calls you, all of a sudden you change your voice and you change your demeanor, right? You're creating all those emotions yourself. And it might be an extreme thought process, but a lot of this comes from the book, The Courage to Be Disliked,
Great
which,
book.
yeah, amazing book. And then it follows a lot of what Alfred Adler kind of talks about in that book. But
Teleology. The
yeah,
separation of tasks. If anybody's read it, God, it's fantastic. Please share more.
no, you go on. I was just gonna say like a lot of that book has changed the way I think about interpersonal relationships and like honestly like my role in a lot of these relationships.
There's something that you said there that I think transcends. I mean, I think you described it, but it shows up in a coaching relationship with clients, but also our personal relationships. I think a lot of coaches, and again, we can talk about human relation. I think they steal people's autonomy and diminish their effectiveness and agency because they try to do too much. They overcoach, they smother people, they try to control every variable, which I think is sort of a misapplication of the extreme ownership, idea. We're referencing a lot of books here. The Jocko Willink Leaf Babin book, which is a great book if you use it appropriately. Do you think that's some of what's going on here?
I think we are the great thing about physical therapy, rehab, coaching is that there's such a quick feedback loop. You do something for your patients and your clients, and you're like, Andrew, Andy, you're so amazing at what you do, and you feel so good, right? And like it hits like a drug. So you want to almost constantly deliver on things that might not necessarily be that important so that you can keep
Mm,
feeding yourself with that validation. Because at the end of the day, what matters more? What happens within the four walls that you're training someone or all the hours outside of there, right? Our job, I think, is more important in guiding people to make sure that they're maximizing everything outside of the gym as well, or outside of the time that they're spending with you. But what does that mean? It means you're less important. And people don't want to be less important, right? So we keep creating a lot of problems or we keep trying to solve things that might not necessarily be there so that we can continue to be valuable. Where I think people want guidance and people want accountability. And that doesn't sound sexy, right? People are like, oh, no, they're seeing me because they want this complex periodization scheme and programming. It's like, no. They literally just want some guidance and some accountability, someone to be on their side.
someone who believes in them. I'll die on that hill. I think that's a big one. Ah, I lost my train of thought there. I had something. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, the most
Quote.
successful coaches are not going to be the ones that know the most. They're going to be the ones that do the best with interpersonal relationships, without a doubt. Now, whether those outcomes are, the best or not, I think it really varies at how you think about outcomes. If you're thinking about outcomes strictly from the perspective of, hey, is this person loading more weight on the bar? Yeah, maybe you'll be a better coach than somebody else. But if you have really amazing character and you hold yourself to a very high degree, you can change someone's not only their lifts, but their mindset and their mentality and the way they face life. And I think that's way more important. Things that we don't consider as coaches and clinicians.
I remember. Do you think it's an ego problem? I feel like that's what you were alluding to for the practitioner.
Yeah. Uh, definitely. I know it's probably a version of themselves where like they don't feel valuable unless they do something. Right? And that's a big problem that a lot of us are raised with because the scorecard usually as kids is like, hey, what's your academics like? Right? Or like, how are you doing in your sports? So you either got to be doing well in school or crushing it in the sports that you're playing as a kid in order to get validation for most people. So what happens there is you're attaching yourself to like these external outcomes. So people need to get better. People need to see results so that you can feed your ego and have your existence be validated. Now, the tough part is we know what it's like to be in the actual trenches. Like it's not very linear. There's gonna be people sometimes that have a lot of stuff going on and you just can't help them. You might be the right coach, but it might not be the right time in this person's life. Or instead of trying to push performance on someone that's already highly stressed, you might just be working on general health. And what is general health? It's meeting the physical activity guidelines. Strength training twice a week, 150 minutes to 300 minutes of moderate intensity exercise where someone can pass the talk test from an aerobic perspective, or 75 minutes to 150 minutes of vigorous intensity exercise where it's more huffing and puffing. Those are the physical activity guidelines. And if you're hitting those, you know you're healthy. In this stage of my life right now, it's like I'm not considering performance as much as I used to.
Mm.
I'm training consistently. I strength train twice a week, and I run about 15 to 20 miles a week. I know that I will gradually get more fit over time, but I'm not looking for these crazy exponential increases of weight on a bar as I used to when I was actively powerlifting. And I think that's something that we can probably adopt in multiple cases where it's like if you're working with someone and they're highly stressed, performance might need to take a back burner, and you just might be someone that keeps them moving, right? Going through the motions. And sometimes we're like, oh, that's not valuable. They're not getting outcomes, but they might not be in a position where they could be pushing that hard, and it's not your fault.
I've got a lot of coaching relationships where part, a lot of my role has taken on, I've gotten more comfortable with this, is keeping people within an operational zone, let's call it. There are some people who they're constantly putting pressure on themselves to do more, and they're genuinely in a state of burnout between their lives and the intensity that they train at. And having someone to kind of keep them regulated, talk them down off the ledge a little bit, which is part of the coaching job, is something that develops a really deep amount of trust. And I've realized that there's certain clients that stick around because I'm just a safe place for them to bounce off of. But then for a lot of other people, it's, to your point, is maintaining at least a minimum standard of accountability because their life is challenging enough where they actually struggle to train with enough volume or intensity. And that, maybe it's that client. Like we hear coaches all the time say, you need to see your clients, multiple times a week to have a big impact. But that client that I see once a week, who's usually reasonably good independently, at the very least, that's the one anchor that resets them if it's a bad week and if they fall off track. So I find that there's a zone in which we keep people from falling off completely and seeing all the negative effects of inactive lifestyle. But there's some people we actually have to protect from themselves and rein them in a little bit.
100%. And again, I'm not, there's really two frameworks, right, that I have in my head. There's people that are overachieving high performers. I've got to dial them back down. And then there's people that like need to be pushed. I think there's the right amount of confidence in order for someone to make change. If someone's overly confident, I need to bring them down. If someone's underconfident, I need to bring them up. A lot of what we've talked about is people that want to do more already, right? They're overly confident in their abilities. I'm like, let's slow down there, right? Like you're not a professional athlete. You've got kids, you got a full-time job, like you can't train like a professional athlete. It just doesn't fit the criteria. Whereas there's other people where it's like they don't think that they can actually make a positive change. They might have low agency. And that's where I might switch my coaching style to be more uplifting, right? To empower them more. It's like, wow, I didn't even think that you could do that. The fact that you could is amazing. So you have to be a little bit more of a chameleon. But I think
Mm.
Pat Davidson said it best. You either have to be more like David Goggins or less like David Goggins.
And it's funny as simple as that sounds, it's shockingly accurate if you know how to apply it.
There's
Because one of
the
my
people that enter the weight room for the first time, and you've got to really jazz them up, build their confidence. You know, and there's a great Gabrielle Wolf. She's done a lot of research in motor learning, and there's this one paper that I thought was hilarious. But fake positive feedback improves motor output. So sometimes people's shapes look terrible, and I'm like, wow, you must be a natural. That squat looks amazing, and it looks like dog shit. But the goal for that session was to make people feel confident, right? Because if someone hasn't been in a weight room ever before, and all you do is keep giving them cues and stuff like that, they're never gonna feel like they belong there. Whereas if like one or two patterns, the ones that we start with, I'm like, wow, you're a natural. That looks really good. They're gonna build more confidence there.
I love that you brought up Goggins. You're absolutely right with making people feel confident. Because I've long said, if most people actually literally went out and tried to do what Goggins did, they'd kill themselves. Goggins is a sort of an idiot at its survivorship bias, where the stuff that he did should have killed him. But the message I always take from that book is, and I think about sometimes, is so maybe it's the acuteness of doing a tough set or exercise in the gym, or maybe it's just a piece of life. It's like the human mind and the human body can handle a hell of a lot more than you think it can. And it puts emotional and physical restriction on you, literal sensors in your tendons and muscles to stop you from pushing further. And if you can remember that, hey, these governors are protecting you, but there's a lot of slack room there. You can push harder. And to your point, I think most people come nowhere near pushing into that. You can redline sometimes. You can spend a little time in the red line.
Yeah, I think every like 2 to 4 weeks, like someone said, like you should meet God, right? Like you should like send it. But I think of this like there's Jocko Willink and then there's David Goggins. David Goggins is like needless suffering, suffering for the sake of suffering. And then Jocko Willink, on the other hand, is probably more like a tactical suffering. I'm suffering, but I'm learning a lesson. I'm building some sort of adaptation from the suffering. Amazed, right, by the things that David Godkin can do. It's unbelievable. I think he's an absolute savage. But again, I would rather choose to suffer for a particular purpose instead of just suffer for the sake of suffering. There's a lot of things where you'll just suffer for the sake of suffering. Just leave that to life. Try to go build an adaptation. Be a little bit smart with your suffering.
Side note, I can't base this on like proof, but there's a lot of suggestion that they cross paths in Goggins' Hell Weeks and training, and that there's a lot of suggestion that they didn't get along, but they seem to come out of the same world. And the way you just put it, maybe that makes some sense. Another quote that I pulled out of your media: you will always tether yourself to what you're familiar with, and that's why you feel trapped. What does that mean?
The best way that I can describe it is people have an emotional home. This is a concept that Tony Robbins talks about. Let's say you're raised in an area, every single year, hurricane hits that area. And we've seen this on the news, right? Like a traumatic hurricane, and people just refuse to like leave the area. They will literally rebuild their homes just to rebuild it again in 10 years. And everyone's watched TV like, why don't you just move? Like there's literally places that are called like Hurricane Alley and those kind of things. But the truth is that it's your home and they don't know anything else. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to, how we were raised, our mannerisms, our the way that we behave. It's like the way we see the world. Like I'm so comfortable. I've operated like this for the past 25 years. Why would I change? It could be worse out there. You don't think it could be better. You just think it could be worse. And I'm very comfortable in chaos. So if you're comfortable in chaos, you just keep repeating chaos. If you're comfortable with an extreme amount of structure, you just always put yourself in situations where it has to be very well thought out and laid out. So in my eyes, it's like everyone has this kind of emotion at home. They're just used to things being a certain way. And even if it's killing them, it hasn't been painful enough yet to the point that they will want to change. And I think people always tether themselves to what they're comfortable with.
A quick sponsor break for my current aspiring coach listeners. This episode is brought to you by Train Heroic. If you know me, you know I only work with sponsors I use personally and where I know the people behind the product. Train Heroic is the best online coaching software in the industry. Not only is it a great platform for one-on-one coaching, it's fantastic for group coaching and selling standalone programs. Train Heroic is used by some of my trusted friends, so I switched my online group program here, and my members love it, raving about its ease of use. Having a dedicated app means far greater reliability for my clients and has been by far my best experience with any online coaching software. Train Heroic is a proven and stable industry leader, meaning it isn't going to suddenly disappear. One of the biggest risks in choosing an online coaching software. When you start a free trial today, you'll get 90 days free to experience why I love and trust this platform. You'll get full support from their team, who've been a joy for me to work with. And I trust Train Heroic and the people behind it. Here's how to activate your free 90-day trial. It's 2 important steps. Number 1, go to www.trainheroic.com/liftfree. Step 2, reply to the email you get. It should be trials@trainheroic.com, and let them know I sent you, or go to the links in the show notes. Is there a way to differentiate between where that's actually a positive thing, it's a good place to be, and there's constructive stuff from it? We all have those points of stability in our life that make us more functional, happier, and where it's limiting and detrimental.
I think the main thing for me, like, is like, am I happy right now? Right? Like, the Naval Ravikant says, like,
Mm.
do you get what you want out of life? That's how you know if you're a smart person. Like, smart people that win in life get what they want out of life. So, like, am I getting what I want out of life right now? If not, then what needs to change? Am I tethering myself to something that I kind of grew up with and I'm very familiar with that's preventing me from getting the life that I want? These are more broad questions, but I think everyone should write down what are the things that you want to feel. And if you don't know what you want to feel, all the random goals that you have set for yourself, what do you expect that to feel like when you achieve those goals? Just make that your North Star now. How do I take certain actions, put certain systems into place so that I can start to feel what I want to feel now today, opposed to just waiting for other things to occur. Because to your point, it's like I just feel I you don't know what's good or bad until you kind of really step back and realize that, like, hey, it's been 2 years. I'm dealing with the same exact problems, or the things that I keep constantly complaining about, they keep occurring to me. And people will say things like, "Oh, I'm just the type of person that this stuff kind of happens to." It's like, maybe not, right? Like, if you keep, it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy that keeps occurring. So you really just have to examine, like, are you getting what you want out of life? Not like a year from now, 2 years from now. I'm talking like today. And as someone that's like trying to build something very significant, I want every single day that I'm building to feel like I'm getting what I want out of it. I don't want to delay gratification until, like, oh yeah, our business is this big. I want to enjoy every single day as I'm building.
How do you get someone who says, oh, I'm going to do this stuff, but they've got the timeline, but what it really is just a far enough place in the future so that way they don't have to confront action today, change today, the discomfort of the change today.
I'm very action based. So like anytime like I want to make something happen, I start today. There's got to be something that you can do today to get the momentum going. And I find that, you can do all sorts of planning. If I do like a 5 year plan, perfect. This is my goal in 5 years. This is what it looks like year to year. This is now the first year of that. This is what it looks like every single quarter. This is what it looks like every single month of that quarter. And this is what it looks like every single week. And this is what it looks like today. So no matter how far in advance you go, keep distilling it, distilling it, distilling it, distilling it until you literally get to what can I do today? Because all of you can do all sorts of productivity things, but at some point you need to take action. So my whole system is like I've got my yearly goal, I've got my quarterly goals, and every single quarter I have my monthly goals, and then I have my to-do lists or like my one big thing that I tackle every single day. So like I update every Sunday. I look at my week. What's my workout look like? If I try to look at my schedule, where can I sneak in my workouts, plug the runs in, the one big thing that I'm trying to get done. And if that one thing gets done, here's like some miscellaneous tasks I need to fill in the time.
And you finish that up more or less by saying that you're focused on process goals and not necessarily outcomes. Let's say a year from now, is it still an outcome you want to achieve? Because I think there's room for both kind of goals.
Oh, I've got lots of outcome-based goals on my wall. Especially from a business perspective, because you're looking to grow and it's all based off of revenue. But
Mm.
based off those, external outcomes, what kind of inputs do I need to do today to make it work? A big part of our growth from the practice has been meta ads. So it's like, how can we learn meta ads at a very high level so that it becomes a repeatable way of marketing for us? We check that off. So now what's the rate limiter? The rate limiter is going to be having physical therapists join our team. So a lot of my social media has actually changed less to be about movement, mobility, and rehab, but more to be this kind of aspirational figure in physical therapy
No.
so I can attract the type of people that I want to join our team. Now, what we've also started to do is do monthly events for coaches and clinicians in our space so that we can teach our framework of methodology. We'll also be connecting with other coaches and clinicians in our ecosystem so that we can, almost cross-contaminate our email lists or cross-contaminate our circles so that I can meet more people. Because our main bottleneck right now is we need talented physical therapists to join our team. And then I'd imagine as we keep doing these things, the next bottleneck is going to be the fact that we really need to get a higher up executive team that understands how to help us grow. Because I think I can help us grow to a $10 million business. From 10 to 100 million, it takes
Hmm.
a lot of knowledge and know-how. And, frankly, at that point, I'll probably be like close to 40 years old. I don't know if I want to keep grinding and suffering that much, at that age. But I know that I can take us to this point, and then that'll be a different bottleneck.
And given that how many books you've been digesting, I'm guessing you've been reading Dr. Benjamin Hardy's stuff on scaling, right?
I just got the book. I've read his other books.
Ooh.
10x is easier than 2x.
Ooh.
Who, not how. All that. Their books are amazing.
Yeah, good stuff there. Everybody can get you on Instagram at Dr. Fata-Chan. So it's at Dr. Fata-Chan. Obviously, I follow you. You can search you. You're pretty easy to find. Anywhere else you want to point people to?
No, that's pretty much it. If you're interested, there's really three businesses that we run. So our physical therapy practice is Moment Physical Therapy and Performance. That's at moment.ptp, Peter Tom Peter. We mentor other coaches and clinicians. We're probably about 70% clinicians, physios and rehab chiros, and 30% coaches. And then we have Go-Getters Coaching, which is if you're a physical therapist in the United States. We've tried to work with like two people from Canada. It's just very different because we don't understand the healthcare system. It's very different in Canada. So US based, we've helped now 80 plus practices launch and scale. So that's been really, really awesome. But yeah, we do a ton of things. I rip like 2 podcasts a week for our education, our business consulting. We send 3 newsletters, and I think we share like 40 pieces of content every single week, which is insane.
Hey, that's what it takes. I appreciate you coming on, everybody. I hope you will go follow Andy, even if you're not necessarily a physical therapist. The coaches, especially, there's a lot of great media there. I think you'll learn a lot. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Andrew, thank you so much for having me on, man. Appreciate the conversation.